Well, hello, Endow friends. Simone here, Director of Program Growth, and I am here with the lovely Kelley Schorn, who we have a very cute meet cute on how we met. But before I go into that little story, Kelley, welcome to the Endow podcast.
Thank you. Hello. I'm Kelley, as she said, and it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Kelley, tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So I am 26 years old, and I'm an architectural designer based out of Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, and I am a cat lover, and yeah, just striving, same as anyone, to stay involved. Post college can be hard out there for the young adults, but yeah, I love reading books, movies, and yeah, that's in a small nutshell me.
And the Catholic faith, which is why we're here talking.
Of course.
So for our listeners, so Kelley and I have a very funny story. So I had just released, I think this was May of 2021, a podcast with Father John Henry Hansen on women priests. And Kelley had left a message on Instagram. I can't remember exactly what you said, Kelley, but something like, "This bothers me. I don't like this." Something like that. So our social media manager said, "Oh, there's a comment about the podcast. Do you want to respond to it?" And I said, "Sure." So we ended up, I just loved it because I love any real feedback. Of course, I prefer positive feedback, but if there's something negative there, it's a great opportunity to connect with someone. So we ended up Zooming. And then a month later, we ended up at the same Catholic conference in Southern California, which was just totally and completely providential. And we have remained in touch and friends since then. Am I leaving anything out of the story?
No, you are not. I think even thinking about it now, I love that our story of how we became friends, and I think it was definitely a God thing because I usually would never do something like that, like any sort of confrontational at all. Not that it was like a particularly rude comment, but even just expressing my displeasure. I'm such a people pleaser, but it ended up to this great conversation, great connection, and over a year later, still friends. So
That's fantastic. And yeah, I totally agree. Sometimes we do these things and it's just a God thing. And yeah, it's been a very enriching friendship for me as well, Kelley. So one of the ideas for this podcast, well, one, it was born out of a desire that you had to kind of discuss what women and women, especially young adult women, when your age, have to deal with in this culture. Just the struggles of being Catholic, of staying Catholic, of kind of the cultural ills, and we'll get into that. And so I thought that was a beautiful desire. I was glad that you expressed it to me because you had so many ideas about like, hey, I want to talk about this or discuss that on the podcast. And then for me, I wanted it, for me, it provided me an opportunity that I'm going to get right now to kind of pick your brain about certain things in terms of, again, being Catholic, staying Catholic, and what it's like to be a young adult Catholic woman in 2022, which has its own unique set of challenges. So one of the things I wanted to start with, Kelley, was I get a lot of emails from moms or aunts or godmothers who say things to me like, they find Endow and they say things to me like, "Oh gosh, this is just what my 20-something-year-old like niece or daughter needs. Can you just go off and convert them?" And I want to say, well, I cannot, but you can, and I can help you accompany them because only the Holy Spirit converts, but I can help you accompany them in maybe learning about and growing in the faith. What do you have to say to those women out there being on, just in that demographic of women who are kind of freaking out about girls your age who are leaving the Catholic faith? Like, what do you have to say to them about, hey, if you want to convert me or keep me in the faith or make a compelling case, like what would you have to say to them? What advice can you give?
Honestly, I had like the opportunity to walk through my life through the past 5 odd years with like a lot of people in a lot of different stages of their faith. Um, and honestly, especially when you're starting with someone who is already maybe like they've already kind of left, distanced themselves, and they're not super open, especially with how maybe they grew up. You know, the older generation, our parents' generation, was very much catechized with fire and brimstone, strict rules without any sort of basis as to why we're following these rules in the first place. And so you look at how today's society is, and it's just like, do whatever you want, whatever you feel, and you can easily see why people are pulled away if that's all they knew. So coming into that kind of environment, I would just say literally just start with the personal relationship, pray with them, invite them into a conversation about prayer, you know, like teach them even the most simple thing, which is how I learned how to pray, was doing lectio, which is reading scripture a couple of times. What stands out to you? That's like God speaking to you. Very simple way to learn how to have this personal relationship, how to be open to it. And, you know, once that starts, like just pray for them during that process, see where it leads. Do your best to not go into the weeds. It's so hard, I know, even for me. Like once if they start picking at you and like, well, why do you believe this? Why do you believe that? Just be like, hey, like getting into your faith doesn't mean that right now. Because how does God approach everyone? How did Jesus approach everyone? Where they were. He didn't go up to the prostitutes and tax collectors and accusing and being like, you need to turn your life around right now. He like spoke to them where they were at, exactly what they needed to hear. And so do the same, try to do the same, and like and see where they're at and see what they're open to. And you know, God's the one ultimately who will convert. He uses us as his tools, but yeah, just start with that.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it does. I appreciate that because I also have fallen into, especially when someone's like directly asking you hot button issues of the church's teachings and and not to say like don't answer them, but sometimes those conversations come too soon or prematurely. And if they really are open to a relationship with you and to, like you said, prayer, just getting them to pray is like really what's going to make all those other conversations not just happen, but just happen more fruitfully, because at the end of the day, you're not winning. You want to win their hearts and their minds, not just their minds. So Kelley, why have you remained Catholic? Why have you stayed Catholic? Why have you remained Catholic when so many your age have left? And it's funny because I think it's providential that we're doing this on St. Edith Stein's feast day. We're recording this. We're going to release it later on, but we're recording this on August 9th, right? And St. Edith Stein left at she stopped praying at 14, right? And we know that the age that people typically leave is 13, 14, right? And that most Catholics, 50% leave at some point by the age of 23. So, St. Edith Stein, pray for us. And also,
Yes.
what has kept you in the game?
I honestly, I think a couple of things come to mind. Like first, when you ask or answer that question or ask that question, one is just Jesus. That personal relationship is the biggest thing, and then that has kept me Christian. And then the fact that the church just has so many answers, and all of the answers like make sense. And then the teachings that it's like a beautiful balance being Catholic. It's like the things you want answers for, the answers are there to be found. The truth, the core of the truth is there, with as many explanations and as many different saints or theologians or voices as you need. And as well as even when something like you read it over and over and over again and it's like just not making sense in your heart, that's where that relationship with Jesus comes in. And that's why I said too, when you're talking with people who have maybe fallen away, is to start with that relationship, because none of these amazing, beautiful truths are going to make any sense to anyone without that basis of that relationship with Jesus. Because I know for me, I'm at such a different point with the church's teachings and with the church in general than I was when I entered into college. And it's just been through developing that personal relationship, which I did not grow up with, which I kind of came into in college, which was just an amazing, beautiful discovery for me. And it was finding that it's like getting to know a friend. Like, you're not gonna want to hear what a random person has to say about your life that you don't know. And you're like, why are you telling me anything? But once you know and trust that Jesus loves you, and you really believe that, and you really trust that, then the truth is going to start to make more sense.
Yeah, because so what you're saying is that the beginning in college, it's not like you necessarily understood or you fully embrace all the church's teachings, but that because you had trust in Jesus, you were willing to enter into that journey. Oh, that's
Right.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah. And that's, again, like that, I can't not stress enough the importance, at least in my life and my faith journey, that personal relationship, because there have been so many different struggles and things, but where it's like, Jesus, I don't like this, but I know you love me. And so there must be a reason why you're asking me to do this and why you're asking me to live this way. And just like meeting Jesus there and not being afraid, even in prayer, to be honest with him as well. When you are upset, when you are angry, and you are feeling those negative emotions, don't turn away from those, bring them to Jesus so he can help you.
Who taught you that?
So the honesty one, this is a funny little baby story, but I had this really good kind of mentor friend that I knew at A&M. I went to Texas A&M for my undergrad, and his name was Greg, and he is an amazing person, and we had a lot of deep conversations about suffering and just being like honest in prayer. And he looked at me one day and he said, Jesus loves cussing. And what he meant by that was like, he had to get to a place in prayer where he was just like, I don't know, it's not like this for everyone, but where you just get to a
Job moment where,
yes, exactly,
like, just to scandalize you a little bit, like, what do you mean? But to say in a sense, you can be honest with God.
Yes.
Yeah.
However you're feeling, like, again, not to say like Jesus wants you to cuss. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying Jesus wants you to be honest. However that comes out in your prayer between you and him.
Yeah.
It's up to you. However you feel, like, Jesus is not scandalized by how you feel and and he wants you to express every bit of how you're feeling, even all of the negative bits, with him.
And precise negative bits.
Yes, exactly. Especially those bits.
Yeah. I can't repeat enough Joseph Ratzinger in his book, What It Means to Be a Christian. He says that not confronting God with all the facts, all the negativity, is not actually faith, but it is a profound form of skepticism that thinks God can't handle it.
Yes.
Which is really, really beautiful. So why are young people leaving?
Because it is very hard to, in a nutshell, but just
off the I can take what you just said and say, well, people are leaving because they're not being taught to pray. And if they're being taught to encounter Jesus, then they might be set on the journey. But that's what I'm picking up from what you're saying. But do you have any other, or what do 26-year-old Catholics in a woke world, what do they need? What are they dealing with? What do they need?
I think that they're being bombarded, honestly, everywhere, like in day-to-day life, especially on social media, with honestly, it's just wild, because things that we grew up, like, what I'm trying to say is what the whole world takes on as truth, as like obvious truth. It's like, well, obviously any sane person believes A, or obviously any sane person believes B. Like that's what the world is like telling us. And because of that, we want to be seen as being normal, in good standing, in good social standing, part of the world, which I know is like, hot button, like, oh, well, Jesus told us not to be part of the world or whatever. It's, or like in the world, but not of it, or something like that. But it really is like, that is being part of the world, is like, it really is starting to be actually so counterculture. We grew up being told, oh, being Christian is counterculture, and thinking like, oh yeah, it's not really though. But now the culture that we're seeing now is so counter to Christianity in like a crazy, crazy way that it's never been before, at least that I've never seen in my lifetime. And I think that is one of the big pulls. And I think that's why, again, just tying back, I'm going to keep saying it, like just tying back to that personal relationship, being open to praying, just conversations with Jesus, that is what's going to lead someone to truth. Because the more you know Jesus, the more you want to know him. The more you want to know him, the more he's going to lead you to truth. And the more like open you will be to hearing and taking in what the real truth is versus what everyone is just shoving down your throat is truth.
Right. When you were in college, so we have some amazing Endow hosts who mentor and like host Endow studies for, women who they haven't fully embraced the church's teachings on everything. Some of them are even pro-choice. I think these Endow hosts are amazing because they have that capacity to accompany women where they're at and slowly but surely bring them into the fullness of Christ's teachings. What do you think about that? Do you think that, like, let's say there were Endow hosts who are like going to go to college campuses and say, we're going to do an Endow study and let it open. Do you think there would be openness there? Or is it, gouge the level of evangelical potential?
I think you would have to, first of all, I love the idea, and I love that whole just like skill, being able to truly meet people where they're at is like, it's a gift. And it's something also that we should all continue to ask God for that gift, to be able to do that in our own lives, because it's hard, especially when you do start learning more and more about the truth. But I would say the openness, you would have to, I think there would be openness. I think, especially on college campuses, people, I found that even myself and just people in college in general are just they're open. They're just so open to everything that's coming in. But I think you would have to wrap it correctly and frame it and present it in a way that people would receive it. So in terms of, I just like off the top of my head in this conversation, I would package it as like, hey, like we're going to be opening up, like there's all this talk going on about like women and what even is a woman and, all of this stuff. We're going to be diving into what femininity looks like, what gender looks like from a Catholic perspective. Would you be open to like learning about that? Maybe.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. Just like tying into whatever's happening in the culture.
Right. Like I wouldn't lead with, hey, we're going to be going into this church document, because as much as I like have grown to love the church documents, I think they can be intimidating, especially if you're talking to a fallen away Catholic or someone who's like, I don't know.
Even if you're talking to a fallen away Catholic, you're talking to a fully enthusiastic Catholic, church documents still scare everybody.
Yes, they do.
Make Endow really hard to market.
Right.
Really hard to market. Hard times. But like there's like a prophetic value to church documents.
Yes.
Like a truly, truly prophetic value. So to like, I don't know, we'll figure it out. Some like savvy marketing way to say like, seems like a stuffy church document, actually has everything to do with everything what's going on in your real life. Let's unpack
Yes.
it together. Like I guess that's
Yeah.
part of my job, but I mean, it's not easy, right? So
Yeah.
what's on, like, what is on your heart to talk about? Like, I know we've talked about everything from abortion to passive masculinity to theology of the body, just in our friendship chats. Like, what's going on in Kelley's world and that you're seeing in the world that is something that Endow can help with?
Honestly, like, I think to answer that, and this is one of the things that I've really also like thrown a lot in through our friendship is, just like I said earlier, like, I think Endow, what it encapsulates is like the truth is here to be found.
No.
And like and really like Endow makes it so much more down to earth and more palatable. Even just knowing you have made it palatable for me because I was also scared.
But not scared enough to say, wait a minute, tell me why women priests can't be a thing. I want to know. I'm upset. I'm triggered.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I love it.
But yeah, like, yeah, just diving, I think that, yeah, just diving into the truth, being open to what is the actual truth, just like despite what I might feel about issues. I think that's like a major theme from just this year, from society right now. Society is the backing of like what makes up truth is crumbling. Like you don't have to even like be someone who's super academic or super into anything to just look around and find all the inconsistencies and poke all of the holes in a lot of the lines of thinking of like the woke culture and the woke thinking and society today. Like it really is like even my some of my friends who are not Christian, not like don't believe, like are atheists, like even them, when I have conversations with them, some of the things that that society is trying to, like extremist society is trying to be like, yes, this, accept this, even them are like, I don't know, I think that's a little too far. I think that's a little ridiculous.
Yeah. I guess that's the good news about the bad news is that when it gets so bad, it's just it's exposing itself, its weakness. It has to crumble, especially the gender stuff. Like it is going to topple. He is going to crumble on his head. It's going to commit suicide at some point because it can't go anywhere. It's so unlife-giving. But yeah, I was just before we hopped on, I was talking to my colleague about, just the beauty of complementarity and the beauty of masculinity and femininity working well together and how essential it is that they work well together. And that our culture right now, one of the difficulties is that there's weak masculinity. So women don't know how to respond to weak masculinity. And then there's, weak or just disordered femininity. And so men don't know how to respond to that. So then everybody ends up confused and unhappy, but human nature is still there and is still desiring the truth of what it's made for. And so, we have to figure this out. We have to figure it out. So tell me so I remember, and I don't remember when this was, maybe like 5 or 6 months ago, we were talking about women and women's issues. And I said, okay, so Letter to Women, you don't have to worry about doing the Endow study, but it's 6 pages. Why don't you read it? And then I so enjoyed your external process on voice notes as you were reading through it. Tell our listeners a little bit about what that experience was like encountering John Paul II's Letter to Women for the first time.
It was first thing surprising. It was so surprising. It was surprising because I could read it without having a dictionary in hand, without without needing to know, when you think church documents, you kind of think like it's like you're stepping into say the Marvel fan base on like movie 22 without having, like you're just going to be so lost. But I did not feel that way. It was very surprising how like easy to comprehend it was, but also B, how relevant it is. And it was written when, in the what year?
95.
Yeah, it was written in the 90s, and it is so present for today. It really is. And it was fun. It was, as Simone kind of mentioned, the whole gender stuff, the passive men and everything, like I have had those wounds as well, and been still going through finding, what does that complementarity mean? What did God create us to be? Like, how does that look? And so this letter, it was kind of healing for me to read in some ways. And because I think JPII even like apologizes to women at one point in it, and it was just, overall it was so it was just great. And it was funny too, because I annotated the crap out of that thing and highlighted it, and I was I think it's divided into little sections or something, and it was like I was sending you voice notes each time, and it was funny. I remember there was even this one time where I was like, well, what about this? He didn't even say this. And then the next time I was like, oh, he literally said that, like in the next paragraph.
That was my favorite part. When you left me a voice note saying, well, he's thanking us and that's nice, but I want an apology. And then I sent you back like, keep going.
Yes.
And then that's when he goes into his apologies. But I just love, I love that. Was that your first, Kelley, is that your first church document that you've ever read?
I think so.
Amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
Amazing. You know what book you'd like? We haven't discussed. You would like Alice von Hildebrand's The Privilege of Being a Woman.
Ooh.
Short book.
Okay.
You'd like it.
I like short books.
Put it on your list. The Privilege of Being a Woman. I think you'll love it.
Okay. I will. Yeah, ever since, like, I feel like that letter to women was like the first little thing, and then this whole year I've been like just learning more. I've also been doing and Simone was doing this earlier too, but the Encounter School Ministry School, and through that I've been reading a lot of just like books and things, and I feel like I've just been in a season of learning, really. And Dr. Mary Healy had this great book called which I love the twist on the title, because it's called Men and Women Are from Eden, kind of a twist on the whole men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
Yeah, I didn't even notice. Yeah.
And I like, just even to the listeners, I would recommend that book too. It was a great follow-up for me personally from Letter to Women, because it really is just a toe dip into theology of the body. And I love Dr. Mary Healy. I love the way she presents things and the way she writes. So
she's one of my favorite writers, speakers, all around humans.
Yes.
It's amazing. Yeah, that's another really great book. Well, anything else that is on your heart to mention, either to Endow hosts, like the spiritual mother types, to women your age who are listening, to young moms, and we have male listeners too, but just anything that's on your heart right now that you want to say on behalf of your generation, and how you need church to show up for you.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so many things I could say about that, but I would say find community, any way you can, whether it be through Endow, through your local young adult groups, at your parish, even if you have to gather them yourself. Community is so also one of the things we didn't get to touch on in this podcast, because there's so many things you could talk about for this topic. But yeah, community is so important, and having someone, even just one good friend or more, to like walk with you, know what you're going through, and also come to when it's hard, and be like, this living out the faith thing is very difficult right now, and having them support you through their friendship, through their prayers as well, and is just a vital
Yeah.
vital thing.
I think that's awesome advice. I totally agree with it. And for me, community was, I had an intellectual conversion, but if I didn't encounter the communities that I did, there's no way I could have remained in this life, because the Christian thing is not an intellectual thing. It's what Benedict says. It's an encounter with a person who changes your life and gives it a decisive direction. And that can't be done by yourself. As he says in another document, Spi Salvi, which we don't have a study on, but I wish we did, or maybe we will one day. He says this in Spi Salvi on hope. He says, no one lives alone, no one sins alone, no one's saved alone. So like community is an essential reality to Christian discipleship. So I love that you mentioned that, because we hadn't talked about that. And for those of you who are young adults and want to start an Endow group, are interested after listening to this, we are putting our studies up on ebooks. That'll be out very soon, if not already by the time this is released. And we have scholarship funds, because we know struggle is real. And so especially we want to encourage our younger Endow audience to not be afraid. Money's never an obstacle, right? God always provides. But if you're thinking, man, I really want to be a part of this, but I don't know if it's in my budget for the study guide, or, just don't be afraid to reach out to us, and we can help you there, help rally our Feminine Genius Circle and our very generous donors. So just don't be afraid. And a shout out to our Feminine Genius Circle ladies, who are not just only incredible hosts, but people who are financially supporting this apostolate, which needs a lot of help. So, because we know how powerful women are, and how much the world hates women, in every arena. This is just, it's a short end of the stick. And I think you made me laugh really hard one day, Kelley. You left me a post about like, we just get the short end of the stick. And there's like, I'm not arguing with you. We do. And that's what's painful about that. It's largely been the work of feminists that have made it that way for us. But feminism is really good for men. It's not great for women. And that's why John Paul II said, we need a new feminism. We need revival. So anyway, all right. Well, thank you so much again for being on the Endow podcast. And yes, until next time.
Until next time. Thank you for having me on.
God bless you.